Now this is the old coach road, situated approximately 2 miles north of Lincoln. Now in the late October evening of 1798, a trader in gold and silver by the name of Abraham was travelling home along this old road after a lucrative day selling his wares in Lincoln. He was reputed to be a wealthy man, so he always took the precaution of carrying firearms to protect himself from highwaymen who were known to operate in this area. Now just off the road is this plantation of trees. It was known as the Cocked Hat Plantation because it's supposed to be shaped like an old-fashioned tricorn hat as favoured by highwaymen in all those old movies. And now that's quite ironic really, because it was a perfect place for a highwayman to lie in wait for any unsuspecting traveller. As Abraham reached the plantation, a highwayman did indeed break cover. He held him up at gunpoint. Now I very much doubt he said stand and deliver, but I'm sure he said something very similar to that. However, Abraham was also armed. He pulled out his gun. A fight broke out. He wounded his attacker. However, Abraham was shot dead here and robbed of all his possessions. Now his body was found and took back to Lincoln for burial. A local constable thought it no coincidence that Abraham had been robbed and murdered. He was sure that somebody had followed him that night. Suspicion fell on a local petty thief known as Long Tom. Now the landlord of a local pub said that Long Tom had come into the pub on the evening of the murder and tried to get him to change a rather valuable banknote. And now on this damning piece of circumstantial evidence, Tom was arrested and he appeared before Judge Hastings. Now Tom could not have appeared before a worse judge. Judge Hastings was your original hanging judge. In fact, he was quoted as saying, "It is better to hang an innocent man than to let a guilty person go free." Tom emphatically denied his guilt. However, he was found guilty, of course. He was hanged at Lincoln Castle. His body was cut down, taken to the plantation here, and hung up to rot on a gibbet where the murder was committed. That is not the end of the story. Years later, the innkeeper made a deathbed confession. It was he who had robbed and murdered Abraham. And he had concocted the story about Long Tom changing the valuable banknote, thus framing an innocent man and sending him to the gallows. The authorities, on hearing this, stripped the landlord and his family of all their possessions, leaving them homeless and destitute. Long Tom's widow was awarded a yearly pittance. But for many years afterwards, this area was shunned, especially at night, for it was said that Abraham's vengeful ghost could be seen here. Hair and beard matted with blood, eyes wild and staring, as he searches in vain for his murderer, the villainous landlord.